I just got a call from the nursing home, and they were reminding me to transfer them the money. What happened to the $2,000 that I give you every month?
My husband, Grant, questions me angrily. I was just getting confused and didn't know what was going on.
Hey, I'm asking you, what happened to the money?
I've been giving it to Lucy. When I managed to get these words out, my husband's eyes widened in disbelief.
Mom, where's the money for the nursing home for Dad?
My mother-in-law, Lucy, was extremely frightened as my husband shouted angrily. My name is Maya. I am 32 years old, and I am a housewife. It has been 3 years now since I got married to my husband, Grant. I met my husband at a singles party, and since we were in the same age, we hit it off right away. And since we both liked to drink, we immediately exchanged contact numbers and made plans to go out for drinks. We went out to different bars and pubs several times, and we got closer gradually. Then, Grant confessed his feelings for me, and we started to go out. And after 2 years of dating, we got married.
Once we get married, I want you to be at home, being a full-time housewife.
As Grant requested that, I quit my job and became a housewife. My husband works for a company that pays reasonably well, and we can make a good living together without me having to work. Besides, I wanted to experience being a full-time housewife at least once, so I agreed to his request. So, I made up my mind to be a good wife who supports her husband well.
This is really, really delicious. The chicken goes really well with the sauce, and the sauce tastes great. And the mashed potatoes with the chicken is the best. I'll definitely eat seconds.
Thank you. I cooked enough for us, so you can definitely have seconds. My husband always seems to enjoy the meals I make, and he compliments and thanks me for doing the house chores.
Thank you for ironing my shirts. I always get really motivated when I get to wear a nice ironed shirt.
I was really happy from the bottom of my heart that I had met a really nice man, thinking that it is rare to find a man who can say such kind words. On our days off, we spent quality time together traveling and driving around. Just being with my husband made me very happy. Time flew by so quickly, and 3 years have already passed since we got married. I have been so happy and stress-free in my marriage with my husband for these 3 years. I am sure it was the same for my husband as well. We don't have any kids yet, but I knew that our child would be a very nice, gentle, and adorable child. How would we raise our child if we had one? What lessons would we give them? What kind of dreams would they have? Just thinking about these things made me excited. One day, however, my husband came home from work with a very gloomy look on his face. "Oh, Grant, what's wrong, honey? Did something happen?" I was very worried because I had never seen my husband look like that before. To this, my husband said,
"May I talk with you for a minute?"
and sat down on the sofa with me. He took a deep breath and opened his mouth.
My dad is going into a nursing home.
What? My father-in-law, Jack, and his health has been deteriorating for several years and had been in and out of the hospital repeatedly. Just recently, half of his body became paralyzed due to the after effects of his illness, and he needed nursing care. Since Grant's parents live in the rural area, we can't really move into their house and live with them, nor can we bring them here all the way into the city. So, Grant has decided to put Jack in a nursing home because my mother-in-law, Lucy, also has a chronic back condition and cannot fully take care of Jack on her own. That would be cheaper than hiring a helper all day long. And after my husband finished explaining everything, he apologized and asked me for a favor.
I'm sorry, but Mom asked me to help her pay for Dad's nursing home. And I couldn't really refuse her. So that's why.
I knew immediately what my husband was trying to ask me. All right, I will also start working, okay?
Honey, thank you so much for understanding.
I didn't want to see my husband sad anymore. Besides, I have enjoyed and had enough time being a full-time housewife for these past 3 years. It's time for me to go out into the world and start working again. I then looked for an admin job as I had done that work before. And as luck would have it, I found a company that was willing to hire me with good working conditions, which I was looking for. The salary was about the same as the one I had before my marriage, and the working hours were just right, from 9 to 5. The company was also close from my house, which was pretty good. So like that, I started working again. It was refreshing to work at a company for the first time in a long time, and I enjoyed being able to communicate with different people again. Now, I am working hard and trying to quickly regain my working skills.
Maya, thank you so much. You're definitely helping out a lot.
Jack's nursing home costs $2,000 a month. Lucy wanted to put him into a proper nursing home, so she made a contract with a place which cost around that much. And my husband transferred the money every month to Lucy. Lucy would contact my husband and say, "Thank you so much for all your help. Your father is safe and sound at the nursing home." And hearing this, he and I were both relieved. But after a few months or so, I suddenly received a phone call from Lucy. "Hello, Lucy. What's wrong?" I was a little surprised, as I rarely received phone calls from Lucy directly. "Oh, Maya, thank you for always sending the money." No. How's Jack doing since then?" "He seemed fine when we visited him last time." "Maybe it's because he's in the nursing home. He's doing really well." "Oh, I'm really glad to hear that then." "And, well, I called you today to ask for a favor, Maya." "A favor?" "You see, Grant always transfers the money to me on weekdays after work, right? But the transfer fee costs a lot, doesn't it? Besides, from the bank which Grant uses, the fee for transferring money to my account is much higher than the others." I felt bad about that because even a small amount of money being transferred from Grant's account would end up costing quite a lot of money just for the transfer fee, if he kept on doing that, you know. "Oh, well, that's true." A transfer from my husband to Lucy's bank account costs about $3 to $4 every time a transfer is made. If he keeps doing that every month, it would amount to quite a bit of money in a year, and after a few years, it would add up a lot. So, I was thinking, you seem to finish your work in the afternoon, so from now on, could you transfer the money to me instead of Grant? If I remember correctly, Maya, you can do the transfers for free since we're using the same bank, right? Yes, you're right, I understand. I'll make sure I transfer the money every month then. And, well, from here, I kind of want you to keep this a secret from Grant, but if possible, could you also add $500 a month along with a nursing home fee from your earnings? Oh? Why is that? Actually, my husband is in debt with about $10,000 and... What? Really? I'm paying it off bit by bit from my pension now, but if I keep on doing that, then I won't be able to make ends meet. I see. So that's why, Maya, please think of it as helping a poor old woman like me. All right, I understand. Doing it all alone by yourself would be too much for you, Lucy. Oh, thank you so much, Maya. You really are a very good wife. Lucy thanked me many times over the phone when I accepted her favor. I did feel that $500 of assistance per month was a bit difficult and would require a lot of work, but I thought it would be fine if Lucy was being so grateful like that. I explained to my husband that I was going to transfer the money to her instead of him, and explained about the transfer fees for now.
Oh, that's true. If the fees keep piling up, it'll be ridiculous. Thank you, Maya. I'll be counting on you then.
So, I transferred $2,500 to Lucy's bank account every month, in which $2,000 was for the nursing home fee, plus the additional $500 for helping out Lucy for the debt. My husband paid the $2,000 from his own salary, and I paid $500 from my own earnings. Then, about once a month, we visited Jack at the nursing home and Lucy's house to see how she was doing. Lucy seemed to be doing very well, probably because she didn't have to worry about money that much anymore. I will always be grateful to you both. Thank you so much for all your help with the nursing home expenses. Lucy nodded at us and made eye contact with me as she said that. I nodded back softly.
It's okay, Mom. You and Dad raised me and put me through college, so let me at least take care of you both like this.
Thank you so much. I'm really happy. We then returned home while I smiled at the exchange between Lucy and Grant. I thought that we would continue to support my parents-in-law like this as we went on with our lives. But then, something unexpected happened. It all happened one day, about 2 months after visiting Jack and Lucy. My husband received a phone call.
Yes, hello. Yes, that's me. Excuse me?
My husband's face became more and more grim as the call continued. Who on earth was calling? I got curious and looked at him all worried. He spent the next few minutes talking on the phone. When he hung up the phone, he glared at me. Oh, what's wrong, honey?
What is the meaning of this?
What is?
I just got a call from the nursing home and they were reminding me to transfer them the money.
What? They were reminding you about that? To my surprise, the phone call Grant just received was from the nursing home where Jack was staying at. They couldn't confirm the payment at all, and when they tried calling Lucy's number, they could not get through to her. So they called my husband, who had been Jack's emergency contact.
What happened to the $2,000 that I give you every month?
My husband, Grant, questions me angrily. I was just getting confused and didn't know what was going on.
Maya, you said that you would transfer the money every month, didn't you? So why hasn't the money been transferred to the nursing home? Hey, I'm asking you, what happened to the money?
Grant was getting really angry at me. I've been giving it to Lucy. When I managed to get these words out, my husband's eyes widened in disbelief.
If that's the case, then why would the nursing home call me about the unpaid fee?
I have no idea. Look here. I quickly showed him the history of my online banking transfer using the bank app on my smartphone. And it's confirmed by the bank that the money was properly transferred to Lucy's account.
So, it's true. Then it's because of Mom?
I didn't want to believe it, but I nodded in agreement with my husband. My husband's face turned pale and he looked very shocked.
Oh, I'm so sorry, Maya. I didn't mean to really doubt you.
No, it's fine. I didn't think Lucy would do such a thing either. And so, we went over to Lucy's place the next week, without even telling her. Huh? Hey, what's going on with you both, coming over like this all of a sudden? My husband was holding back all his emotions, but his anger and emotions got out all at once the moment he saw Lucy. He began to tremble with anger and angrily shouted at Lucy.
Mom, where's the money for the nursing home for Dad?
My mother-in-law Lucy was extremely frightened as my husband shouted angrily. What is up with you, screaming like that all of a sudden, honey? And why are you even asking me this?
I just got a call from the nursing home saying they couldn't reach you. It looks like you're behind the nursing home fee.
No way. I was told that Maya was the one transferring the money directly to the nursing home, so I left it to her, didn't I?
Excuse me?
Lucy just blatantly told a lie, which both Grant and I knew that it was a complete lie. I'm sure of it. That's what Maya said on the phone.
Where's the proof to that then?
Well, it's not like I record phone calls, so I can't give you any proof, but I'm sure she said so. But I can't believe the nursing home fee hasn't been paid for because of that. You're such a terrible person to steal money, Maya. Lucy began to say so and blamed me for what she did. But I clearly had proof that I transferred the money to Lucy. So my husband knew that Lucy was lying.
Wow, I really didn't expect you to be that terrible, Mother.
Why? Why won't you even believe me? Lucy, this is a little off topic, but were you planning to go out now? What? Well, yes, I was. I was going to have lunch with my friend. I see. So that's why you are wearing luxury brand clothes, huh? I beg your pardon? You said you were having trouble financially, so in addition to the nursing fee, I also transferred $500 from my own earnings to your bank account. But you were spending it like that? What are you even talking about?
Mom, there's no use in lying about it. Maybe you thought that if it was between online banks, you could fake that you didn't get the money from Maya since she didn't have a bank book. But if she used the app, she could easily confirm it, you know.
What?
So, I already know that Maya has been transferring you a total of $2,500 every month.
Oh no.
I can't forgive you for lying about my dad being in debt to Maya, and then deceiving her and living a luxurious life by using all the money we transferred to you. I'll have you pay back every penny you ever spent without our permission, Mother.
No way. I don't have any more money with me.
Don't play with me. My dad is about to be kicked out of the nursing home because of you and your selfishness. You should be really ashamed of yourself. How low could you even get?
My husband got so angry that Lucy was completely freaked out. We then immediately reported this incident to Jack. When Jack found out that Lucy had done such a thing, he was furious. He then divorced Lucy, deducted the unpaid nursing home fee from her share of the property, and then deducted the money we had been transferring her, in which, in the end, she used to spend for her own luxury. So, in the end, Lucy got much less money than she could have gotten from the divorce. She was also evicted from her house and is now working part-time and living alone in a shabby old apartment. I don't know what happened after that, since we also cut ties with Lucy, but I guess she will live a lonely, sad life for the rest of her life. We then asked Jack to come to where we live and move into a nursing home near our house. Now I can easily visit Jack after work or on weekends. I also just recently found out that I was pregnant. When Jack's grandchild is born, my husband and I will visit Jack with a baby to see him. And my husband and I will continue to take care of our family and live happily together. Lucy is indeed a lousy person, spending the money of the nursing home without permission. She probably didn't really love Jack either, huh? I feel a little sorry for Jack, who was married with such a person for so many years. But I am relieved that Maya and Grant found out about Lucy and her true nature in the end. I hope Maya lives happily with her husband, Jack, and the baby that she is about to have soon. Thank you for watching until the end. Please subscribe to our channel. We hope to see you in our next video.
The outcome of my mill being bedridden and using me as her servant for 10 years.
I'm Dawn, 50 years old. I live peacefully with my husband. Until a few years ago, our lives were stormy. My mother-in-law Karen, who lived alone, became bedridden about 10 years ago. She tripped and fell at the entrance of her home and fractured her pelvis. She underwent 2 surgeries and spent quite a long time in the hospital. She was reluctant to undergo rehabilitation even though the muscles in her lower body had deteriorated. The nurses and physiotherapists who were exasperated with her began to contact me every day. Even though my husband Jeremy and I tried to persuade her, she didn't get out of bed. You will understand if you are in my situation. Do you know how hard it is not to be able to move your body the way you want to? Karen was pessimistic about her inability and often took it out on those around her. It was not unusual to hear her yelling from her hospital room. I knew that nothing I could say would help. I asked Jeremy to speak to her patiently, but he quickly gave up on her stubbornness. If she doesn't want to do it, then don't do it. Karen and he were equally stubborn, so it was hard to get them to come to terms. Even though the doctor told her that she would become almost bedridden if she didn't move, she showed no sign of concern, as if she had given up. She even said that if that happened, she wanted to move in with us. Jeremy and she were actually not blood related. She was the second wife of his late father, and after he passed away, she lived with Jeremy. She was after her late husband's fortune when she married. However, things didn't go as well with him as she hoped for. I heard that she still held a grudge over the failed succession of inheritance. I married into such a family and lived separately from her. I wanted to avoid living with such a nervous and selfish mother-in-law, even if she needed nursing care. I patiently tried to convince her to go to rehabilitation, but nothing changed. When I made a final proposal to transfer her to a hospital with a rehabilitation ward, she finally agreed. It was an hour-and-a-half drive from our house. I thought that she would complain when I told her that I couldn't come to visit her as often as before, but surprisingly, she accepted easily. Her muscular strength had deteriorated considerably during the time she had complained. I felt weary when I was told by the physiotherapist that she needed to work patiently. After 3 months in the hospital, she was discharged. Even though she got out, she was not able to move as freely as used to. I talked with Jeremy about admitting her into an assisted living facility since it had been impossible for her to live alone. She adamantly refused and demanded to live with us. I don't want to go to a facility. Are you trying to abandon me? She told all her friends and relatives that we were trying to get rid of her. We were made to look like the bad guys. I feel sorry for her. You're the eldest son, so you should take good care of her. Jeremy received numerous calls from his uncles and aunts. In the end, he was forced to agree with Karen. It was such a calculated ploy by the mother, who knew so well that her son cared about his reputation. He tried to prepare the house as best as he could to keep her quiet from complaining all the time. He installed a ramp at the entrance, bought a high-performance nursing bed, and so on. He was confident that she wasn't going to say anything. Contrary to his thought, she had something outrageous in her mind. You're my daughter-in-law, so you're responsible for taking care of me. She demanded that I look after her 24/7. I had a job and was not in a position to obey her. If I wanted her to live without any inconvenience, I needed a professional helper. Besides, Jeremy's income was not enough to support all of us. I couldn't quit my job to maintain our lifestyle. Jeremy disclosed the situation to her, but she was adamant. I don't want to be cared for by a stranger. Why can't I ask her to fulfill her duty as a daughter-in-law? If we didn't listen to her, she threatened us by saying she was going to tell all the relatives that we were heartless people. As soon as he heard the word relatives, he shut up. Thus, I had to work, raise a child, and take care of her. To do so, I resigned from the company where I had worked for a long time, and instead, I took a part-time job at a nearby diner. My income dropped dramatically, and the time I spent with Karen increased. Hey, how long are you going to make me wait? Bring me my food now. When I was at home, she was very noisy. If I was even a little late in preparing the meal, she yelled at me so loudly that it echoed throughout the house. She was also very particular about how I served the food. Tea had to be scorching hot. There had to be a variety of food, including Italian, Mexican, and Asian dishes. A side of vegetables at every meal was a must. Meat and fish had to be domestic products. It was very annoying for me as she was only crippled and had a normal appetite. Perhaps because she had nothing else to look forward to, there was no compromise at all when it came to food. If the food was even slightly cold, she asked me to reheat it. If she didn't like the menu, she ordered me to cook something else. It was a lot of work just to prepare a meal on top of helping her with personal care. She could not bathe by herself, so I had to help her. She refused to wear a diaper, and every time she needed to go to the bathroom, no matter how busy I was summoned to take her to the bathroom. The room had to be aired several times a day and had to be cleaned every day. Bed sheets and pillowcases were also changed daily. It was an absolute no-no to throw her good clothes and bedding into a dryer. She dared to claim that she couldn't sleep on a sheet that was not exposed to the sun every day. When it rained non-stop and the laundry didn't dry, she whined endlessly. How was I supposed to control the weather? I almost went off at her so many times. The biggest hassle was taking her to rehab once a week. The storm of complaints ravaged from the day before. She got even crankier and refused to go when I didn't pay her enough attention. Plenty of complaints kept coming out of her mouth before, during, and after rehab. I was on the verge of a mental breakdown listening to her negativity all the time. I felt as if I was trapped in a cage. Jeremy and I repeatedly asked her if we could hire a helper. The answer was always negative. Don't you feel ashamed to ask a stranger to take care of your family member? She made it sound as if we were the wrongdoer. I continued to work like a servant in obedience to her. 5 years had passed since she moved in with us, and she suddenly changed her attitude. I've decided to hire a helper for myself. Just make sure you pay for it. Jeremy and I wondered what had gotten into her head for changing 180 degrees. Regardless, I was overjoyed to be freed from the burden at last. I suddenly felt motivated to make arrangements for her. She did all the work, and everything was decided in no time. She arranged to have the expenses deducted monthly from her account, and I transferred the necessary amount there every month. It cost money, but she had long-term care insurance that covered half. If I worked full-time like before, I could manage to pay the bills. The helper came on weekdays, so we had never met her. My burden was considerably reduced both physically and mentally, and I felt more relaxed. Working outside also relieved my stress. The helper also took her to rehab, which was the hardest part of my life. She was like a lifesaver to me. I only had to transfer money to Karen's account every month, and that was it. 10 years had passed since she became bedridden, and a question arose in my mind. After a few years of hiring a helper, I had never once seen her. I didn't even know which agency she came from. I had my doubts about whether the money was really being passed on to the helper. When I spoke to Jeremy about it, he vehemently agreed. I had been transferring expenses every month, but I had never checked to see if they had been debited. He asked Karen to show her bank activities, but she stubbornly refused, saying that it was a private matter. You are trying to steal money from me. She turned away from him, and he could not find out. We couldn't even contact the helper as we never got the details. When our suspicions grew stronger, Jeremy suggested something. Let's set these up to see if the helper is really here. He bought small cameras on his way home from work. After making sure Karen was asleep that night, we set them up in various places around the house. When we checked the recordings, our jaws dropped to the floor. A short time after we left for work, she got up from the bed like nothing was wrong with her. After stretching and moving her neck and shoulders to relieve stiffness, she walked out of her room without a care in the world. When she returned a little later, she had an ice cream in her hand. We were speechless at the sight of her sitting on the bed and eating it. She walked around the house and took a shower by herself. After that, she changed her clothes and put on makeup, and then there was a sound of the front door opening. She must have gone out. When she returned 30 minutes later, she was carrying a bag in both hands. Inside were a large number of snacks. We were amused to see her hide them in the back of the closet so that we didn't find them. It seems that when we were not around during the day, she acted like a normal person, and when we came home, she instantly went into acting like a cripple. What the hell is going on? What is this? We murmured at the same time. Karen had completely healed. She had not been taking her rehabilitation seriously. I wondered how she managed to get better. Seeing her as a normal, healthy person, The anger I had been holding back until now welled up inside me. I couldn't remain silent for sure. I had to question her. Jeremy felt the same way. One evening, we came home on time and carried out the plan together. Karen watched the news every day on TV we bought for her. The news began to play loudly from her room as usual. We took advantage of that moment and operated the TV with a multifunctional remote control. She was surprised at the sudden change of the screen. The real show was about to begin. She was speechless at the image of herself walking leisurely through the house. The plan was to get her to talk by showing her all images captured by the cameras. She tried to turn off the TV with her remote control, but I quickly turned it back on with mine. We kept switching on and off for a while until she finally became impatient and glared at me. "You, give me that right now. Why don't you just come and get it yourself? You can walk, right?" I turned on the TV again and showed her the image. They were high-performance cameras that also recorded the sound of her cheerful humming perfectly. All of her daily activities were recorded on those. She stubbornly continued to turn it off, but when Jeremy snatched the remote from her hand, she was finally unable to resist. "If you don't want to watch it so badly, why don't you just walk over to the TV yourself and turn it off at the base?" His glare was harsh. She turned pale and tried to read our faces, and then she slowly stood up. She walked with a limp, but it was too deliberate after all that. As I stared at her coldly, she turned off the main power of the TV. The room became quiet. She seemed to be racking her brain trying to come up with some excuse. When she couldn't think of anything, she slowly sat down on the bed and began frantically apologizing. "I'm sorry. I am so sorry." It was the first time I had ever heard her apologize. After that, she mumbled some kind of excuse. When Jeremy demanded that she explain clearly at once, she nervously began to tell us how she got better. When she started rehabilitation, her legs were already strong enough to walk. She recovered incredibly well after a few sessions and was able to walk normally within a week. Once she recovered, she needed to go back to living alone. If she pretended to be crippled, she was able to live with us. She thought it would have been an easier life for her and decided to keep acting the part. She refused rehabilitation so that she could imprint herself as a quirky person and reduced the number of trips to the hospital after she was discharged. I let out a deep sigh at how shallow and selfish she was. She told us that she just wanted to live an easy life. In the beginning, she enjoyed feeling superior by using me as a servant. When she began to feel annoyed with my earnest attempts to care for her, she lied about hiring a helper. She took money from us for her entertainment. Most of it was spent on social games such as lab simulations and music games. The amount I was transferring to her was not enough, and she was even taking it out from her pension. She told the doctor that she was able to walk again thanks to the training, and stopped rehabilitation a few days after she told us she wanted to hire a helper. We took care of all her living expenses, so she had no worries about spending her own money. She spent 10 years of her life using me as her servant without a care in the world. We could never forgive her. "Get out of here as soon as possible." I nodded in agreement. "You can walk and even take a shower by yourself. You can even go shopping alone. You don't need nursing care at all. You don't need to live with us. Karen looked up and instantly burst into tears. Please let me stay here. Her house had already been torn down and the land sold. She couldn't live alone anymore. She went on and on with selfish excuses. Her shallow scheme of living a financially and physically easy life was so obvious, and yet she kept pleading to rely on us. Our determination was unshakable. Move out in a week. Jeremy left the room with that. I was about to follow him when she hastily grabbed my arm. Please, you're on my side, aren't you? It's true that we haven't gotten along well, but isn't it a normal thing between in-laws? We can get along with each other from now on. I'll help you with anything at home. She didn't realize that the reason we didn't get along and I had a hard time were all because of her. I shook off her hand and said quietly, like you said before, you don't want to be taken care of by a stranger. I am your daughter-in-law, but you're like a stranger to me. Can you please stop referring me like I'm family only when it suits you? She slowly crumbled down to the floor. I walked away without looking back. After that, she didn't make any effort to move out. Jeremy got impatient and started packing for her. The sight of him stuffing her personal belongings into boxes was frightful, and she was unable to protest. She had rented a small apartment in a hurry, but she was going to have a hard time living on her pension alone. Even the money from selling the land was spent on stupid games, and she didn't have much left. She could no longer rely on us and asked for help from her friends and relatives. We had shown the recordings to all kinds of people, so no one was likely to give her helping hands. Everyone was furious to find out that she pretended to be physically disabled for 10 years. They refused to get involved with her in any way. Jeremy demanded she pays back the 10 years of living expenses and the money that was supposed to be paid for a helper. She cried and tried to default, saying she didn't have that kind of money, but when we threatened to take her to court, she shut up. She's now cleaning offices in the morning and working at a factory during the day to make ends meet. She pretended to be disabled for a long time and stole our time and money as much as she wanted. I'm sure she's suffering from the painful repercussions. What a pathetic end for a woman who married for money and tried to live comfortably by deceiving her son and his wife. We have been able to get back to our peaceful lives for the first time in 10 years. Even if Karen truly needs care in the future, we would not reach out to her. Well, if she's that tough, I'm sure she will live a long and healthy life.
The result of my husband and his mother, who bullied me, eating a cake that was tempered by themselves.
I'm sorry, help me. This is too much. I apologize. Please do something. As my mother-in-law and husband desperately begged me for help, I asked the first thing that popped into my mind. Why are you guys asking me for help? What have I done to you? I have no idea what's going on with you two and how I can help. Anyway, I have something else to do. I turned my back on them, ignoring the frantic begging in agony behind me, and left. I'm Eileen. I was a 27-year-old secretary, and my husband Aaron was 29 years old back then. He was an advertising agent and worked for a different company from me. We met because our offices are in the same building and got married 2 years later. My in-laws lived a short flight away. My mother-in-law Yvonne was left alone after her husband passed away last year. Aaron, being the eldest son, took her in without any discussion. Although we still lived separately, we were just on different floors in the same apartment building. She was, to put it nicely, sassy and a bit impatient, and I was more of a think before act type. We were polar opposite in terms of personality and did not get along well. She seems to get frustrated with my slow speech and action every time. She thought it was better to do things quickly, even if the result was 60 points. She often suffered a loss as a result of proceeding without thinking things through. No matter how hard I tried to adjust to her way, I could not agree with her completely. For example, my wedding. When it came to choosing a venue, "Just pick one already," she scolded me and then recommended a cheap place that was available for the earliest booking without checking the service carefully. At that time, I had narrowed down my choices to a few and was planning to visit each place. "What are you procrastinating about? In the end, all venues are more or less the same. Stop wasting your time worrying about tiny details." Considering our future relationship, I decided to follow her advice. However, the venue was located in a hard-to-reach area, and there was a patchy cellular connection. In addition, we were served a lower-grade course because they weren't able to get the originally planned ingredients on the day. Aaron and I were frowned upon by the guests. Yvonne told the relatives who had complained to her. "Eileen insisted on having a reception here. We tried to reason with her, but she didn't budge." Thanks to her, I was recognized by her relatives as a bride who was not only selfish, but also unable to offer the least hospitality. I complained to Aaron about that. "We were all family now. You should forgive her. Besides, you agreed to have it there in the end." He took her side, and I was left frustrated. Those misunderstandings continued to happen over and over again after the wedding. "You are really slow and clumsy. It's a waste of time for me to be with you. You make me wait all the time, and I'm really tired of it. Can't you respect other people's time?" She started to criticize me blatantly. That happened because she changed the plan earlier due to her impatience, and I was just on time. "I'm sorry, but I just followed the original schedule." "Are you telling me it's my fault? Can't you be more flexible?" "I'm not saying it's your fault, but I have other plans too. Surely you are not that selfish to think that everyone else should accommodate you." "Who do you think you are talking to? Don't you dare talk back to me." I knew that Aaron wasn't going to deal with her, so I stopped being nice and directly addressed her. She probably never dreamed of being talked back by me. She became so furious that you could boil water on her head. She told Aaron about that in a very exaggerated manner, and I was yelled at by him later. "Why are you so selfish? Stop irritating my mother." He became completely on her side after that. At that time, my father-in-law was still alive and gave a slap on her wrist. "If you can't be nice to your daughter-in-law, it's only a matter of time before this house will cease to exist. When that happens, who will take the responsibility? You have always pushed other people around and caused nothing but trouble. I've been the one to clean up your mess every time. You forget that, and you're being a nuisance to others again?" And he gave Aaron a lesson as well. "How long are you going to be controlled by your mother? You have your own family now. When your wife is in trouble, you don't even take her side, but tell her off. Shame on you." Thanks to his reproach, that their behavior, which could have been seen as bullying, was kept under control. Aaron was actually a really good husband as long as Yvonne wasn't involved. He always prepared a surprise gift for me on my birthday and took the initiative to help me with the housework on his days off. His attitude changed drastically when she was and wasn't around. At that time, we had no significant relationship, and I only saw them during Easter and Christmas. I thought that if I endured those events, I could have a relatively happy married life. However, Just 1 year into our marriage, my father-in-law became ill and was hospitalized. He passed away despite his treatment. I wondered what Yvonne was going to do.
My mom is moving in downstairs next month, and we are going to take care of her,
Aaron suddenly announced. What? What do you mean we're going to take care of her? Why didn't you tell me anything about this?
I'm the eldest son, of course. I should take care of her now that she's all alone. And since you don't like her, I rented a separate apartment instead of having her move in with us. I'm making a compromise for you, so don't complain.
When my father-in-law passed away, I thought we might have needed to take care of her. I never imagined that I was going to be forced to do so without any consultation. I became distrustful of him because of his insensitive behavior. I was also concerned about my future life with him, who would have most likely taken her side if we had a confrontation. I began to be a bit cautious in my daily life. Such days were exhausting, and as I feared, Yvonne harassed me in various ways. Moreover, Aaron even suggested that I clean not only our house but hers on my days off.
I always help you with the chores. She's getting old and tired, so go and help her. I mean, I can do it too, but she's going to be around for a long time. It's a good opportunity to patch up your relationship with her.
I decided to take up his advice in the hope that things would improve. It must be hard for you to do all the house things. I was wondering if there was anything I could do to help. I don't know what a clumsy girl like you can do for me. Well, that's okay. I don't have enough furniture, so could you get me some? Sure. Should I pay first and can you reimburse me later? You live on Aaron's income, don't you? Why don't you pay from there? He said I was free to spend it however I wanted. When I was about to refuse, she lashed out loudly. Just go! I will let him know later. I didn't have the energy to talk back and readied myself to go shopping as she ordered. Then I realized that the things she asked me to buy were large shelves and a coffee table, all of which were difficult to carry by myself. I'm sorry, but these are all big and heavy things. I'd rather wait and go with Aaron. Are you serious? He works so hard. Are you going to make him work even more on his day off? Do you even care about him? If I talked back to her even a little bit, she got upset and yelled at me harshly. I gave up and decided to obey her. Furthermore, Aaron gave her the duplicate key to our house, so she entered without permission while we were at work. She began to open the mail and ransack the bedroom. She may be your mother, but to me she's an outsider. I can't stand it when she comes in and out of our house freely, peeks into our bedroom, and opens our mail without permission. Ask her to stop. He responded with an okay at the moment, but her behavior did not improve. I thought that if things continue as they were, divorce would have been the only option. I felt I was losing my feelings for him. Then, one Friday, Aaron had a day off. I came back from work to find Yvonne relaxing in the living room as if it were her home. Surprisingly, when she noticed me, she made an unusual gesture. Oh, you are back. Hi, Yvonne. I went shopping with Aaron today and found a delicious-looking cake. You have been very kind to me, so I bought it as a thank you and put it in the fridge. I tripped earlier, and it crumbled a little. I'm sorry. I was astounded, and then Aaron joined in.
We'll go to a furniture store a bit farther away tomorrow. Mom really wants a bed from there. You're off, so come with us. It's late to have the cake tonight, so let's have it before we go out tomorrow.
He was grinning derisively, and I got a hunch that the cake wasn't an honest gift. Okay, why don't we leave after lunch then? Satisfied, the two of them went to clean Yvonne's apartment in preparation for the new bed. I checked the cake in the fridge after they were gone. There was a round chocolate cake, that had clearly been tampered with in one place. I could easily have guessed that Yvonne was going to make me eat that questionable part. To cover it up, I ran to a deli and bought a chocolate bar. I melted it down and reapplied it to the top of the cake so that no traces of it could be seen. I moved the strawberry on top a little so that only I could see the questionable part. The next day, Yvonne came over a little earlier than scheduled. "Good morning, you're just in time. I just finished preparing the cake, so please have a seat." I tried to fix the crumble part. "Oh, of course, I will eat that part, so it may not matter to you." "Oh my, that's unusual for you. You got things done ahead of time, and you've even learned to be considerate. Is Aaron up yet?" "I'm sure he will be up soon." Immediately after, he came to the living room after waking up from sleep. When he got ready to go, the three of us decided to have the cake. He wasn't much of a fan of sweets.
Mom, have mine.
He handed his plate to her after eating half of his slice. She finished the other half happily. Meanwhile, they both grinned at each other, watching me eat. I knew they had done something to the cake. I thought there was something extremely spicy or bitter in it. The two, who were supposed to be eating the part in question, showed no sign, and I was honestly disappointed. As soon as we finished,
"Well, let's go. Can you drive home?"
Aaron handed me the car key, and just as we were about to leave, "Eileen, you should go to the restroom before we head out. It's quite a long way to the store." "I'm fine. Besides, we will use the highway, so it will be quick." Then, when we were getting on the highway,
"How much longer until we get there?"
asked Aaron with a pale complexion. About an hour and a half, I think."
"Can I use the restroom somewhere?"
"Eileen, did you really eat the crumbled part?" Following Aaron, Yvonne, who was breaking out in a cold sweat, asked me from the back. "Of course I did. I wouldn't let you or Aaron eat the damaged part." "You don't look so good. Are you feeling okay?" "I need to use the restroom too, so stop anywhere you can." I sensed that both of them were suffering from sudden stomach aches from their appearance. My mischievous spirit got the better of me, and I dared to drive slower and past the first exit.
"Come on! I mean, how come you're okay?"
"What are you talking about?" Aaron looked like he was trying very hard not to yell at me, and asked a bizarre question.
"No, it's nothing."
"I mean, you guys did something to the cake, didn't you? It's obvious. If you don't tell me honestly, I will skip the next exit." I could see them gasp.
"I don't know what you're talking about."
"Oh, so you're not going to tell me?" "It's a laxative. We put a laxative in it. I wanted to teach you a little lesson." My hunch was right. I was so glad that I reapplied the chocolate the night before. "Please get off here." I let them out of the car at a gas station we had just arrived at. As soon as they stepped outside, Aaron gasped, "Ugh." I heard him curse in a whisper. Then a faint stench hit my nose, and it was clear to us all that the worst had happened. "You guys are not feeling well, so stay here and rest."
"I'm sorry, help me."
"This is too much. I apologize. Please do something." "Why are you guys asking me for help? What did I do to you? I have no idea what's going on with you two, and how can I help? Anyway, I have something else to do." Ignoring their frantic pleading and begging, I started the car and rushed home. When I got there, I packed up my belongings and evacuated to my friend's house. I then went to see a lawyer with my journal, which had details of Yvonne and Aaron's bullying, and the data of recorded conversation about the laxatives. Later, I was told that they called the car service to get home.
"Damn you! The car service is charging me for dry cleaning because of you. You pay for it."
"Why should I?" I mean, how did you make such a mess? I questioned Aaron, who called me in a rage, but he must have felt embarrassed to explain and became silent. Well, it doesn't matter. I'm divorcing you. Please speak to my lawyer from now on. I'm sure you will get a letter soon.
Wait, why are you talking about divorce?
Of course, you enjoyed bullying me with your mom. Not only that, you guys even tried to drug me. I can't live with someone like that. More importantly, an adult man who leaked. I couldn't help but burst into laughter. Yvonne, who was apparently listening in on the speaker, screamed, "We don't want a woman like you anyway! Don't ever show your face in front of us again!" Yvonne, I will make sure to bill you for the furniture and other things. Let me make something clear to you. I earn more than Aaron does. I paid for you out of my premarital savings. She was screaming on and on about something, but I ignored her and hung up the phone. A few weeks later, my lawyer told me that Aaron had negotiated to pay alimony in installments, and Yvonne refused to repay me. When my lawyer told her that I could file a police report about the drugging, she agreed to my request. I refused to accept Aaron's installment offer. You have your father's inheritance, don't you? So please pay me in one lump sum. In the end, he agreed to pay me by giving up most of the inheritance. His income alone was not enough to cover his rent, so he moved to an inexpensive apartment with his unemployed mother. The last time I saw him was at the gas station with a very pale face. I left everything to my lawyer, and our divorce was finalized without needing me to face him again. I accepted a transfer that my work had approached me. I have now started a new life in a new city. My lawyer tells me that she's sometimes contacted by Aaron about getting back together. I have all that handled by her. I am out of my difficult life in which I had no one on my side and was being attacked by two people. I'm enjoying my freedom while I'm busy working hard in a new position. Now that I have received a lot of alimony, I'm thinking of going on a trip once my work is settled.
Lymil called me filthy and gave me newspapers to sleep on. The next day, she lost everything.
When everyone had gone to bed during my stay at my in-laws' house, I was brought into a small, dusty straight room. "What are we doing here, Susan?" My mother-in-law gave me an evil look. "Don't pretend you don't know. This is where you're sleeping tonight." "Oh, but I'm going to sleep in the guest room with my husband." "There's no bed for a hideous woman." "Hideous?" "Yes, you are. Here, take the newspapers. Sleep on this." Susan took a bundle of old newspapers in a corner of the shed and shoved it to me with a smirk. Why? What did I do to deserve such treatment from her? I felt the back of my nose burning with anger and sadness. I had no choice but to answer in a trembling voice. "Understood." After she left, I tried to get out of there, but it seemed something was propped against the door and it didn't budge. Giving up, I spread a newspaper on the cold, dusty wooden floor and sat down to cry. I couldn't stand it anymore. I would have rather left my husband than be treated like that. Just as I was agonizing, I heard a rattling sound outside, and the door suddenly opened. Standing there was an unexpected person. My name is Joy. I'm 27 years old. I met my husband Jarvis at work and fell for his affectionate and honest personality. After 2 years of dating, we got engaged. Before visiting his family for the first time, he gave me a heads up. "My family has a long lineage in the countryside. My grandma is 80 now and in charge of the house. She's a pretty strict lady. I wonder if she would like me." "I'm sure you'll be fine. Besides, my dad and mom are friendly, so don't worry." I was anxious all the way till I get there. His house was located in a vast landscape with acres of green field. It was well maintained and had an affluent appearance. "Hello, we're here." Jarvis called out in the driveway, and his mom came out of the house. I greeted her nervously and handed her a gift. "My goodness, so nice to finally meet you." She was amiable, just as I had heard beforehand. I was ushered into the house with a feeling of some relief. There, I was met by a dignified elderly woman and a gentle-looking man. I knew they were his grandmother and dad.
"Oh, welcome. Come, sit down."
We sat down in front of the grandmother, as his dad, Dan, suggested. Susan brought glasses of lemonade and joined us.
"This is Joy. We're planning to get married this year."
When he introduced me to everyone, Dan nodded satisfyingly.
"She's wonderful. I'm glad for you, son."
In contrast to his cheerful parents, grandmother just looked at me in silence. Time passed joyfully while I nervously answered questions from his parents. When I sipped the lemonade, I tasted something strange and involuntarily gasped. To put it simply, it was extremely salty. It tasted like seawater, and I couldn't help but gag.
"Are you alright?"
Dan looked at me with concern. I just laughed it off and told myself that maybe it was a normal flavor in that area. Didn't want to offend the family by saying something strange. Suddenly, Susan changed the conversation.
"If you guys are getting married, we would like to meet your parents as well. When would be a good time?"
I only have my mother." Her eyes widened for a moment. One of grandmother's eyebrows seemed to raise as well. My dad passed away in a car accident when I was very young. Since then, my mom raised me by herself. I explained to them what I had told Javis in the past.
"Well, you two must have gone through a lot."
Dan gave me a sympathetic smile.
"Then, we must make your mother happy. Son, you must take good care of Joy."
Jarvis nodded earnestly. His comments filled me with warmth. When it was time for us to leave, I put on the shoes I left at the entrance. A sharp stabbing pain shot up from my toe. I found a small piece of glass stuck in it. Ouch!
"Honey, are you okay?"
Jarvis was concerned, and Susan also looked at my foot.
"Oh my God! How did it get into your shoe? Are you alright?"
"No worries, I'm fine." I forced a smile and left the house. On the way home, Jarvis started a conversation.
"You must have been nervous all day. Poor you. They were all happy with you, though."
"I'm not sure. Your grandma didn't say a word to me."
"That means it's all good. She's very direct, so if she didn't like something, she would have said it right then and there."
I hope so. I still felt something strange. The odd salty lemonade and piece of glass in my shoe bothered me. It didn't mean that I could say anything doubtful about his family. I kept my discomfort in my heart. After that, my mom met everyone, and Jarvis and I registered our marriage. My mom cried and rejoiced over it, which assured me that I made the right decision. We had a normal married life for a while after that. Jarvis didn't mind that I kept working, so we had a dual income. One day, a package arrived at our new house from Susan. Inside were some vegetables. I immediately called to thank her. After a few rings, she picked up the phone.
"Yes, hello?"
"Hi, Susan. Your package arrived today. Thank you."
"Oh, good. It's not for you."
I couldn't believe my ears. She snickered into the phone. "I sent those for Jarvis. If you eat them, I'll be very mad." She was friendly and kept a smile on her face when she was at the wedding. I was confused by the sarcastic tone compared to that.
"I can't believe you actually got married, by the way. You knew you weren't welcome, didn't you?"
What do you mean by that?
I put salt in your drink and even hurt you with the glass. You should have known. You're so stupid.
I had a hunch that those were harassment. I was stunned by the shocking revelation, but she continued to press the point.
I don't welcome a girl raised by a single parent like you in my family. Grandma didn't say a word to you, did she? That's because she didn't accept you. No, she didn't want you to say anything in front of Dan and Jarvis. But it was obvious that she was not happy with you. You should remember that.
Tears welled up in my eyes, and I sniffled into the phone. Hearing that, she continued with satisfaction.
If you tell Jarvis about this call, I'll make sure you regret it. I don't think he will believe you anyway. So, please divorce him as soon as possible.
She hung up the phone. All I could do was stand there in shock. When Jarvis came home, I couldn't tell him what happened. He was delighted to see the package and did not doubt his mother's kindness. There was no way I could tell him the truth. I seldom saw my in-laws who lived far away, so I didn't have to deal with Susan face to face. Instead, she called me frequently, made harsh remarks every time. Also, she made sure to call when Jarvis was not around. She was not pleased with my single-parent upbringing, and eventually, she started making fun of my mom. A woman raised in a low-class, single-parent household isn't good for my son.
You were probably living in poverty, weren't you?
Your mother is just as bad as you for raising a lowy woman like you. After dealing with her harassment for a while, I was so stressed that I lost weight.
Honey, haven't you lost weight recently?
I rushed to answer Jarvis' question. Oh, really? Maybe it's because I've been on a diet lately. He was worried about me, but I could only brush it off. As the seasons passed, and when summer approached, he asked me,
Hey, why don't we have a short break at my parents' place?
Good idea. I'm looking forward to seeing them again. He was excited to return home after a long while. Not wanting to put a damper on his feelings, I played along with him. In truth, Susan's harassment had not yet ceased. I was fighting a stomach burn that intensified as the trip approached. The day had arrived, and Susan completely hid her usual evil side and welcomed us joyfully. I forced myself to smile and interact with her. When I greeted my grandmother-in-law, Grace, she spoke to me for the first time.
Welcome back, my dear. Make yourself at home.
Thank you. Dan, on the other hand, was as friendly as ever. He welcomed us with freshly picked watermelons and cold drinks. If I stayed close to Jarvis, I wasn't going to be bullied by Susan. I stayed within his sight as much as possible. It was effective. Although she sometimes glared at me secretly, she didn't do anything outwardly terrible. I wanted to finish my trip in peace, but I couldn't ignore helping her clean up after dinner. I had no choice but to be alone with her in the kitchen. As soon as we were away from the others, she threatened me in a low voice.
What on earth do you think you're doing? Sticking to Jarvis all day? I told you to divorce him as soon as possible.
I have no intention of leaving him, I retorted in a slightly stronger tone. If possible, I want you to accept me.
You want me to accept you? You're so brazen for someone who grew up in a low-class single-parent home. You even show your face here again. I'm going to teach you a lesson.
Just as I was about to talk back, her expression tightened, looking behind me. I turned around and saw Grace standing in the corridor.
Oh, are you going to bed now? Yes, I am.
Grace stared instantly at me and Susan for a bit, and then slowly disappeared toward her room. Once she was gone, Susan resumed bullying. I had to endure it until I finished cleaning up. When I was done, I returned to the living room. Jarvis was drunk from drinking with Dan.
Hon, I'm going to bed. You should get ready too.
Then Susan immediately spoke up. She said she wanted to look at the old albums, so I'm thinking of showing her. Of course, I never said anything like that, and Jarvis had no reason not to believe her.
Ah, okay. So, can I go first?
Yes, I'll join you later. As soon as he left, Dan got up, said goodnight, and walked out of the living room. Once we were alone, Susan ordered me to come to the storage room at the back of the house. It was cluttered with boxes and old furniture, with a naked light bulb on. It was a dim, small, and smelled of dust. What are we doing here?
Don't pretend you don't know. This is where you're sleeping tonight.
Oh, but I'm going to join Jarvis in the guest room. She gave me an evil look.
There's no bed for a hideous woman.
Hideous?
Yes, you are. Here, take the newspapers. Sleep on this.
She took a bundle of old newspapers from a corner and shoved it at me with a smirk. Why? What did I do to deserve such treatment from her? I felt the back of my nose burning with anger and sadness. I had no choice but to answer in a trembling voice. Understood. I'll come and let you out in the early morning. Have a good sleep until then. She left in a good mood without hiding her grin. I tried to get out of there, but it seemed something was propped against the door, and it didn't budge. Giving up, I spread a newspaper on the cold, dusty wooden floor and sat down to cry. After what must have been 2 hours, I heard Susan snoring in the distance. I couldn't sleep at all and sat in the storage room crying. Her bully was becoming more than I could endure. I would have rather left Jarvis than be treated like that. Just as I was agonizing, I heard a rattling sound outside, and the door opened. Grace! There she was, staring down at me with her sharp eyes. What in the world are you doing here?
Well, I guess I know.
She wiped my tear-stained face with her wrinkled hands. I was pulled up to my feet and led out into the hallway. Then she suddenly shouted loudly,
Get up, all of you, and go to the living room.
Jarvis was the first to react to her voice. He looked at my miserable face in tears, and then looked at Grace in surprise.
What's going on, Grandma?
Next, Dan came out to his bedroom.
Mom, what's wrong with you at this time of night?
Are you crying, Joy? Finally, Susan came out looking pale. When everyone gathered in the living room, Grace sat at the head of the table and urged me to sit next to her. Jarvis and Dan looked confused.
Dear, tell us honestly what was done to you today.
She spoke in a stern voice.
But don't worry about anything. Just tell us.
Okay. Susan told me that there was no bed for a hideous woman like me. She gave me a bundle of newspapers and locked me in the storage. Jarvis was astonished. She's been harassing me all this time. She called me a low-class single-parent child. She even made fun of my mother, which was really hurtful.
That's outrageous. You, Susan, what are you thinking?
Dan grimaced at her, but she could only tremble her lips. Grace said to Dan,
It's all true. I found her in the storage. I also heard with my own ears Susan saying terrible things to her in the kitchen after dinner.
Dan and Jarvis stared at Susan in shock. Grace glared and yelled at her.
What do you have to say about single mothers? I raised Dan with my own hands alone too. She's a decent girl, you know. How could you do such a terrible thing to her? You are the hideous one.
Then Susan took off the mask of a good wife and wise mother she had been wearing, and screamed hysterically. "Shut up! Shut up, all of you! It's your fault! You and Jarvis have been flattering her. She's a stupid bitch who grew up in a single-parent home."
Hey,
Dan tried to stop her, but she kept ranting. "Just throw her out of her house right now! I despise her. I am more important to you guys than this woman, right?" Then Grace shouted at her to be quiet, and the room fell silent at once. She turned to Dan.
you see, this is who you have been married to. I've been warning you for a long time, haven't I? Mom. She's all about appearances. But what she actually does is spiteful. I have never seen such a malicious woman. I don't intend to share the house with her anymore. If you don't want to get rid of her, you two need to live together.
Dan turned to Susan with a red face.
You have always been self-centered, but I never thought you could be this cruel. Now that I know your true nature, I can no longer see you as a wife. What are you talking about? I'll give you some money for the time being, but I want you out of here tomorrow.
She couldn't hide her surprise to see him with an unlikely stern attitude. She turned to Jarvis with pleading eyes. Your father is being horrible to me. Say something to him.
Give me a break.
His normally mild voice had a threatening tone to it, which made her jerk.
What did you do to my loving wife? I will never forgive you. I don't want to be in contact with you from now on. Don't ever show your face to me.
Oh no! Her knees gave up, and she fell to the floor. Everyone looked at her with disdain, and no one consoled her. Instead, Dan and Jarvis apologized to me repeatedly. I also apologized to them for not telling them about her sooner. And so the night turned into dusk, and Grace and Dan saw us off in the morning. Right before we left, Grace said to me, "This is your home too. When you come back next time, she'll be gone, so don't worry." I nodded and gave her a tight hug, then got into the car. I was told that Dan later divorced Susan. He had been fed up with her self-serving and inconsiderate way. They were able to divorce with only the minimum division of property. After being kicked out, Susan was also turned away by her parents, and she was forced to live alone in a smart apartment. She's been a housewife for a long time, but now she has a part-time job. She must be struggling to adjust to the new life. She will probably spend lonely golden years alone, but it's all her fault. I, on the other hand, have been relieved from my stress, and to my surprise, I am pregnant. Since the instant, Jarvis has become even more affectionate to me. Dan and Grace have been very caring as well, so I've been able to enjoy a relaxed pregnancy. I will go back and show Grace her great-grandchild once the baby is born. Right now, I am genuinely looking forward to going there.